Well, we're all kind of stuck in our houses right now. Not all of us, but a lot of people are. And so maybe you're looking for something to do. Me, I've been doing videos and things and trying to fill my time. But I don't know about you, but I need good music to carry me through this time of isolation. And so I thought it'd be cool to give you 10 albums that I think are kind of underappreciated. They're not necessarily unknown albums, but they're underappreciated maybe in a band's catalog. And of course, Justin Bieber's announced his tour is going to be canceled. Oh, God. So if you're trying to find a way to get over that, maybe these are some albums that can help you through. So I'm going to give you, in no particular order necessarily, albums that I think are quite good to get you through this time. My 10th album to maybe carry you through the quarantine is 40 Watt Sun's album, Wider Than the Sky. These guys only have a couple of full lengths to their credit. One is pretty heavy and dark, and this one is dark and mostly acoustic. But there's one song, the first song is called Stages. I believe it's 14 minutes long. But man, what a beautiful, haunting album. So if you haven't gotten a chance to hear 40 Watt Sun's Wider Than the Sky, you should definitely check it out. And this is on several streaming platforms for you. The ninth band started out as being kind of an extreme metal band. And as they got a little older and more experienced, they've kind of mellowed out over time. But I still really appreciate their output. And that band is called Anathema. This band has done countless albums. I know they have over 10 albums in their discography. And this here is called Falling Deeper. It's a compilation of some of their older songs reimagined with piano and more mellow. I really think this album has an atmosphere that kind of encapsulates everything they've done, but in a new way. And so if you haven't heard anything by Anathema, definitely check them out. And this album here, Falling Deeper, is a nice compilation of a lot of their older and newer stuff done in a very mellow format. Super cool. This next band underwent quite a bit of tragedy recently as one of their main songwriters, bass player, singer Caleb Schofield died in a crash, unfortunately. So their album Final Transmission came out in 2019 and got quite a bit of critical praise because it is a very good album. However, this is my favorite Cave-In album from several years ago. It's called Jupiter. So if you've never gotten to hear the band Cave-In, this is them doing everything they do very well. There's beauty, there's intensity, there's heaviness, there's mellowness, there's everything you want in an album that's dynamic. And so definitely, if you've never heard Cave-In, check them out. They have a very deep discography. But I would start with Jupiter if I were you, because this is, I think, them firing on all cylinders. If the world were justifiable, Bon Jovi would probably not be selling out arenas, but Matthew Sweet would be. I really appreciate Matthew Sweet's songwriting ability, his talent, just an immense singer-songwriter. He's been doing this for decades. And my favorite album of his, a lot of people go to Girlfriend because that had his big breakthrough hit, and maybe his only breakthrough hit, I'd say. But for me, the album that I really appreciate is 100% Fun. This is kind of more of an upbeat listen for the most part. There's a few downtrodden tracks, but I really appreciate this, man. Not When I Need It is a great song. Giving It Back. Sick of Myself was the hit off of this album, their kind of radio hit. Super Baby. There's so many great songs on this. So if you want a pure rock album with some great tunes, I think 100% Fun by Matthew Sweet is your fix. Once again, another band that I don't think is underground because they had a breakthrough album was the band from Australia, Silverchair. Silverchair in '95 broke through with Frog Stomp, a huge hit for them. They kind of fell into the grungy movement, I guess you'd say, is where they were kind of pigeonholed. But Daniel Johns was actually has been a very talented songwriter, and really Silverchair expanded before their demise as a band. Daniel still does some solo stuff, I believe, which I'm not super keen on. But for me, I really think that one of their better albums as far as everything they were doing is this album, Young Modern. This has a song on it called Those Thieving Birds, which I think is just a great song. Waiting All Day sticks in my head so very much. So if you quit listening to Silverchair after Frog Stomp, I think you made a mistake. And I think you should check out Diorama and definitely Young Modern because it shows how diverse the band became. And it shows all of their talent it's all on display right here. There are certain bands that kind of become like an afterthought. People kind of dismiss them because, they remember them from this era of their lifetime. And I feel as though the next band, H.I.M, is one that is thrown into the gothic / emo kind of pile where people are like, it's just, it's trite and it's this and that. And it's all about love. And that's true. But I feel as though H.I.M were very good as far as constructing songs. And for me, their pinnacle was Deep Shadows and Brilliant Highlights, an underappreciated album in their catalog. It's got Pretending, which probably is my favorite H.I.M song of all time, Lose You Tonight, Salt in Our Wounds, just a lot of really cool mid-paced rock songs with a little bit of a goth tinge, but I really think that this album is ignored unjustifiably. So if you haven't heard H.I.M's Deep Shadow and Brilliant Highlights, it's a lot better than Razor Blade Romance, in my opinion, and definitely better than the album that had their biggest hit, Dark Light, which I don't love, as some of you know. So check out Deep Shadows and Brilliant Highlights for sure. Now for our next underground artist, Elton John. Okay, he's not underground. He's one of the most famous songwriters of all time. He's my personal favorite living musician, but there is an album that was from 2001 that I think is kind of disregarded quite a bit, and I think it's in my top 3 of Elton John albums, and that is his album Songs from the West Coast. He kind of departed from a lot of his bandmates and, for a while there, and this is kind of like their return where they kind of gathered all back together to do an album, and I think Songs from the West Coast is just a wonderful album. American Triangle, Original Sin, This Train Don't Stop There Anymore is probably the most well-known song off this album, but I really think this is just a great album overall. There's not really a weak song that I can skip by. So if you love Elton John, but you haven't listened to Songs from the West Coast, or if you haven't listened to it recently, go revisit this album. It is way better than you probably remember. If you're feeling tense and there's nothing that can kind of break that tension because you're just kind of locked up, I think the band The Gathering is a great place to go to kind of escape from that. They have a very soothing feeling. Well, not their really early stuff because it was like death metal. But, as they went on and they added Annika van Ginsbergen as their singer, she has one of the best voices in metal. If you've never heard Annika, Anneke, you have to go check her out. She's so good. But my favorite album by them is definitely a double album, and it's called How to Measure a Planet with a question mark. So you have to go planet, how to measure a planet. This album is large, it's lengthy, but it's really beautiful and I think just so soothing. Liberty Bell, Rescue Me, Travel, the end of Travel is, God, it's so good. Marooned, just really so many great songs. So this album has 13 songs on it, but I don't find this to be at all upsetting because I think they're all very unique and they kind of take you to a place where you may not be able to go right now. So I think if you haven't heard The Gathering's How to Measure a Planet, then you should definitely check this album out. Anyone who loves metal has probably heard of Acid Bath, very important band from Louisiana. And, they were not very lengthy as far as their time around because their bassist was unfortunately killed. And so they disbanded and they formed other acts. Dax Riggs has gone on to do some solo albums. He's got just one of the most unique voices in rock and metal. If you've never heard Dax Riggs, definitely check his stuff out. But for me, when they had this album by a band called Agents of Oblivion, there's a couple of members from Acid Bath moving on, and Dax is the singer here. This album is unfortunately hard to find as far as like for streaming. It can be probably found on YouTube, I would think. This is their debut and really the only true Agents of Oblivion release, but it was on Rotten Records, and Rotten Records is synonymous for hoarding music and not really working with the artists all the time very well, from what I've been told. So, but you have to hear this album if you never have. It's really haunting. This is an album that I've listened to hundreds and hundreds of times. So definitely check out Song That Crawls is very unique. Phantom Green is beautiful. Ladybug, Hangman's Daughter. These are all songs that really just haunt you for so long. And this is just an album to turn out the lights and relax and chill out. It's got a beauty to it and a sadness to it that I think is actually kind of comforting. So check out Agents of Oblivion's album if you can find it. And the last album I recommend is one that I keep listening to over and over again. I think I've listened to this 3 days in a row. I just can't get enough of it. It makes me feel comforted, and it makes me feel like I can get through this with no problem. It's really helping me a lot, and I hope it will for you too. This is by well-known Canadian singer-songwriter Devin Townsend. He has an album from a few years ago for the Devin Townsend Project called Ghost. This is a more expanded version of it. It's got an album called Deconstruction with it, so kind of like an expanded thing. But Ghost is definitely, if you could check out his album Ghost, it's mellow, beautiful, haunting. The vocals are so good. The songwriting is perfect. Devin Townsend is the most underappreciated musician in the metal scene, I think, still. I know people love Strapping Young Lad and his heavier stuff, and a lot of people won't go along with him because he's doing like such crazy stuff. But his album Empath from last year was my favorite album that year, and I really feel like Devin Townsend can do anything the man wants to do. And this album goes to some experimenting with his mellow side, and it really, really works. And it hinted on some of the stuff he was going to do for Casualties of Cool as well, which is another great album by him. So listen to Ghost, listen to Casualties of Cool, and hopefully this helps get you through this process of being locked down. You know, if you have some suggestions, send them along to me. I'm always looking for new stuff, and I hope you enjoy this list. Take care of yourselves, stay safe, wash those hands.